people feel excluded from training, or training opportunities aren't particularly provided for them, or accommodating of people with a mental illness. And then there's workplace issues. I mean, the lack of knowledge and the lack of understanding what mental illness I've talked about already, the lack of environmental accommodation of people with a mental illness. I've already alluded to some of those issues, but more pertinently also lack of flexibility in the workplace. So, for example, that people have some flexibility about work hours that might be more accommodating of their particular pattern of waking and sleeping, for example. Also, simple things like building in time when people can go to their regular medical and other appointments. Also, what can often happen is that there isn't sufficient planning ahead for either the individual with the mental illness or for the workplace colleagues or management to be able to plan ahead for what happens if the individual does become unwell or is becoming very stressed and feeling that they're really not coping. It needs, to my mind, to be really thought through ahead of time, and to say, well, we hope these things don't happen, but sometimes they do, and how would we be able to pick this up early, and how would we be able to intervene successfully together to avoid things really falling apart. And my view is that we should be not seeing all of these things as reasons to say, well, it's all just too hard. We should be saying, here's an opportunity for us to integrate work placement as part of what should be a reasonable and realistic expectation for anybody, including people with a mental illness. And our job would be to try and package that up in a package which would involve all of the appropriate individuals, so clinicians, workplace support people, the patient, the carers potentially, and build this all into a package which can actually empower the individual to take better control of their own illness and their own symptoms, to help them with things like social rhythms, for example, which is a key component to helping people with bipolar disorder. That means having a time when you go to bed at night, a time when you get up in the morning, the time you do your exercise, the time you eat your meals. All of these can be a very important part of the treatment management of bipolar, that can also be enhanced and augmented by having workplace obligations, because then you do get up in the morning and, as I said earlier, you do have something to go to work for. So rather than these things being in conflict with each other, I think they can be very synergistic with each other, and I think that we need to think about it much more in terms of those opportunities rather than always concentrating on the potential problems and threats associated.
Mm-hmm. Now that makes a lot of sense, and actually reinforces the therapeutic nature of work, that
Absolutely.
imposing a routine and structure on your week is actually beneficial to the management of the illness, and enables people to be active.
And also, being at work doesn't mean everybody has to be, at work at a particular for 8 hours a day or whatever. It might well be that for some people, well, it's very difficult to get going in the morning. It might be just working afternoons, or just working 2 or 3 afternoons a week, something like that. This is still very worthwhile, very useful for the individual, also very useful for employers and for the economy. So, I think having that sort of flexibility as well, and for people with a mental illness not to feel a failure if they aren't able to return to full-time work. It might be an unrealistic goal, but some sort of work can be very helpful. I should say also a lot of people I know with mental illness find doing volunteer work actually very important for them in terms of their sense of sort of giving back to the community, I suppose, engagement with other people, socialisation opportunities, and local councils have volunteer networks which people can access as well, and I certainly encourage that, maybe even as a segue to actually paid employment.
A softer way to start with volunteer opportunities.
And Caroline, as well, you know a lot about the sort of supports which are available. So through when we get support workers to actually work with people to get them back into work, and also support them once they are in a work environment. And I think one of the points which is important to make is to again have realistic goals in terms of that. Some of the agencies which offer support are very well intentioned, but sometimes they want to meet their targets of desperately getting people into work, and that's a tick that they can put against their performance. But if you try and rush things and don't get the right match of the individual to the workplace, it can all fall apart. So it's better to do the work slowly, carefully, methodically, making sure that the match is right in terms of the workplace and the individual. And as you know, I mean, social firms offer a particular opportunity in terms of being able to tailor the workplace more to accommodate the individual. So that's another way of looking at it.
Yes, that having work environments where people can disclose that they have a mental illness.
Where the other staff
are well informed about what it means to have a mental illness. You haven't got to disclose the news as well as then think, I now have to educate the rest of the workforce of what it means to have schizophrenia or anxiety. And that is making a big difference in terms of job tenure. And being able to use the same sort of sophisticated tools to make the adjustments that people with other workplace-related injuries might need.
Absolutely.
It's the equivalent of the physios coming in and adjusting your seat or your screen. We can do that with the clinical expertise, the occupational therapists available, being able to restructure the hours, job share, redefine the tasks. There's a lot that can be done, as well as you've mentioned, helping the person to take responsibility for their illness and manage the illness better.
I think it's all part of an alliance between patients, clinicians, support workers, and workplaces themselves. And everybody has an equal, everybody has some obligations, and some accommodations are made. So it's really around that sort of packaging of things.
Yes, and what we found in some cases, it was as simple as organising shifts around the local bus timetable, but part-time work. Another instance is somebody who heard voices, so even though it suited him to be working on his own, and he had a clear set of tasks to do, the co-workers knew to every 20 minutes or half an hour to say something to him, because if he had too much time on his own, the voices would start to take his attention away. So often it can be quite simple modifications.
And people understanding that some people who hear auditory hallucinations actually find it very useful, for example, to listen to music. So this would be an acceptable thing for somebody to do.